before I knew it, I'm summiting a mountain, which I'd never done, with only men. We're like literally for this day and a half on this really narrow pathway. I'm like, well, what am I? It's like a one-way path, like one person path. Like, gotta go. I finally have to talk to one of the guys, and he basically teaches me how to shit against a rock, like standing up.
Hello, travelers, and welcome back to the Travel with Meaning podcast, the show where we uncover the stories and adventures that shape our world. I'm your host, Mike Scheibel. Today, we're thrilled to sit down with Michaela Guzy, an award-winning documentary filmmaker, travel journalist, and aspiring force behind Oh, the People You Meet. Michaela has journeyed across the globe, from the savannas of Africa to the serene lakes of northern Michigan, capturing the beauty and complexity of human connection. In this episode, Michaela shares her incredible travel tales, from the unexpected encounters with wildlife to navigating lost luggage with a little help from social media. We'll dive into her philosophy on sustainable travel and the importance of stepping outside of your comfort zone, and why she believes that every journey is an opportunity to grow. Get ready for an episode filled with laughter, insight, and the kind of stories that remind us why we love to explore. Our conversation with Michaela Guzy on the Travel with Meaning podcast starts now. What's up? How are you, Michaela?
I'm a little jet lagged.
Yeah?
It's probably just not jet lagged. I just think it's true, like travel exhaustion, crowd strike, and a lot of connecting flights and a lot of lost luggage, but all worth it for all the experiences.
Tons of lost luggage for you.
Oh my God. It's like I jinxed myself. Right before I left on this almost 2-month mission that was never seeming to end, I was interviewed on KTLA's LA Unscripted at LAX. Only time I've gone to LAX and not gone on a plane somewhere. And they were asking me about travel hacks. And so one of my travel hacks was, oh, you should have an air tag and everything. Well, my luggage proceeded to get lost every single place that I flew. Those air tags came in damn handy. The number of times I filled out the form online or told the person at the airport, I'm like, God, all right. And nothing was happening. And I'm like showing them the air tag. And I'm like, no, it's here. Like you didn't put it on the plane. And they're like, well, someone will call you. No one calls you. And I was finally like, enough of this. So I looked on their Instagram. I'm like, I kind of have a similar number of followers to you. And so I screen grabbed my air tag and I put a big red circle on it. And I was like, how hard is it to go get my bag that you didn't put on the plane 3 days ago? Here it is again between Terminal A and B near the KFC in Dusseldorf. Suddenly the social media manager is like, oh my goodness, I've escalated this to whoever. And all of a sudden, my bag found its way from Dusseldorf to Ibiza in under 12 hours. And I was like, huh, social media does have a purpose.
Sometimes you got to use it for your advantage, right? We have a lot to unpack with you, as we like to say, right? Oh, the people you meet, your story, all this. But I do want to go backwards. I want to go to your beginnings. You grew up in St. Louis.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Right? Toasted ravioli.
Oh, yes. They're deliciously terrible for you.
True story. What was life like growing up? Did your family travel? Did you have this whole idea of wanderlust as a kid?
Yes. I don't really totally know where it came from. Missouri is landlocked. My dad hated traveling, like even to go to the cabin in Michigan, which we went to every summer, continued to go to every summer. We call it Camp Gamp with the Guzwalds up in northern Michigan. My mom traveled growing up, but, more to like the Europes and around the U.S., very nature oriented in my family. But we didn't have like a ton of money to get out there. My parents were single working parents, very hardworking, like blue collar people that did a lot to give back to their communities.
Where does the connection with the family for northern Michigan come in? Because it's it's a traditional thing, right? Everyone kind of
Every
go every
summer.
summer, right?
And, like, our extended family as well. In fact, I'm going back, to Northern Michigan over Labor Day, which is not normal.
I love that. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but my family gathers every summer in northern Minnesota,
Oh, okay,
like,
lake life.
but lake life, full on, right? But like same thing like you, it's our camp, but there's always like 30, 40 of us. It's like
Yeah,
I
it's
never,
fresh water,
yeah, but
it's
it's definitely not a
nature.
vacation because it's family. But you know,
Yes,
you,
well, there is that, and we have a lot of little ones now. My sister has 2 kids. There my cousins all had kids. There was, like, 5 under 3 or
oh yeah,
something, and I was just like, "Oh my god, whoa."
yeah, I get it.
And lots of, like, rescue dogs, and I was like, "La la la."
It's a lot, but at the same time, it's a wonderful tradition and like one of those places that's different in the scope of maybe what people think is the grandiose travel, but
Mm,
it's I don't know. And it's funny because I realize you and I can totally bond on that. Like one of those places you go back to every year that you can see the growth in your life or how you've transformed.
mm.
There's nowhere else I can really see that for myself except for when I go to our cabin in Minnesota. So I'm sure you feel similar on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, whenever someone asks me my favorite place, I hate that question, by the way. If you really make me choose, that is the place that I return to. I'm spending time with people I love and a place that I love. Was actually the last time I saw my dad alive last summer.
Mm,
But my grandparents bought that cabin, and so they were really the ones to start the tradition. They left the cabin to their kids, my mom being one of them. And so it's just kind of getting passed down for generations. They all take turns having a few weeks with their families there.
I agree with you. I don't like the question favorite place,
Mm,
but when you really kind of think about it, I'm the same way. The moment I step on the dock and I haven't, this is the first summer I'd been there in like 6 years.
mm,
The moment I can step on that dock, it's like I like say little Mikey is like back there and experiencing that. So I love that we
mm.
kind of have that thing, guys.
Totally.
It's fun.
Totally.
One thing I want to say to you is like, and you and I are friends. We've
Mm,
become friends over the last couple of years. I loved what you were doing through travel. I loved what you're doing through your platform of the people you meet. Just we were like a kindred spirit with that. Let's go back. Let's unpack, if you will, um, because you have a whole career before you even get into the side of it. You're
appreciate.
doing what?
So I ended up going to college in Mobile, Alabama, and moved to New York City afterwards and lived there or called it home for 21 years. I worked at Deutsche Advertising, um, quickly discovered I didn't want to be a media planner, but was working on Revlon, Almay, and Mitchum. I got recruited to go work at the Condé Nast corporate team. I was recruited to go to Travel and Leisure, also a great brand that I ended up really loving. Some really wonderful people, and was there for 3 years, and then went to the corporate team. Was Travel and Leisure, Departures, Food and Wine, Exec Travel, but a number of things were happening in that February moment of 2012 is when I started Oh, the People You Meet. But the two main reasons were nobody had a digital, social, or video solution I believed in from a business point of view. When I say no one, it wasn't my company. It was the entire publishing landscape.
Right.
And no one seemed to want to accept back then. Like I was coming in, like I had meetings with our partners from Mexico and Canada, and I was like, you guys, they're like literally cutting their budgets. Like they're not spending on print. And also they don't want not only to have ad pages, but like they're not even spending against the American market, or they want to have something where you can book. And I was like, these people are not only my partners, they're my friends. I
Right.
don't want to sell them something they don't want.
Right.
And I was like, I need to be true to myself because I just can't do this anymore. Like it literally like made me sick to my stomach to go to people that I loved and respected and did business with. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And then from an editorial point of view, nobody talked about why I like to travel, which is meeting new people. And so that was truly where Oh, the People You Meet came about. And I wasn't allowed to make money in the first like 4 months of leaving the company. I can't talk about it, but like I wasn't allowed to. And they called gardening leave. And so they were giving me my salary and benefits. And so I therefore had to comply. And so it was great because it was this special gift from the universe where I didn't have to run out and find another job I actually gave myself the time to travel around Africa by myself for 3 months, 3.5 months, 7 different countries. I went on a one-way ticket, and just the travel agent, Ascari Travel that I was working with, was just sending me every week, like, here, you're going here next, you're going here next.
So, your first place you kind of, when you leave corporate lifestyle,
Mm,
corporate life, whatever we'll call it, you head off to Africa. Had
mhm.
you ever been to Africa?
No, well, in Northern Africa, yes. I
Okay.
had been to Morocco, so nothing sub-Saharan. Um, I'd always wanted to go, like, since I was a kid, and if I really think of where, like, my travel bug comes from, I used to watch National Geographic with my grandfather, Buzz, and I think that is really what, if I really think back to, like, where did my wonder come from, like, I definitely had a crazy imagination growing up. Probably still do. But, um, I just remember, like, seeing, the women with, like, the rings on their neck, and I'd be like, "Grandpa, I'm gonna go there when I grow up." And he'd be like, "Yes, you will." And that ended up being Myanmar, Burma. I would see the animals, and I'd be like, "Grandpa, I wanna go where those people are jumping over the cows," Ethiopia. And just I was, "Wow, I need to go everywhere." And my family was actually always quite supportive. Like, if you worked hard and you got good grades and you did the things, you could do anything that you wanted to do. But, although my dad did not want me to join the Peace Corps, he was very against me going to the Peace Corps. I I've been on so many safaris, and that first 2012 trip planned by Ascari Travel, like 7 countries, I went on something like 90 safari. Like, I did a lot of safaris. I was crawling on my stomach with African bush camps to a pack of wild dogs. And at one point, I'm like, wait, like, what else might I encounter on my stomach here?
What do you think is your most meaningful trip that you've been on? And out of these 12 years, who are those people you meet you still think about? Where were you? What were the experiences?
Well, all of them were meaningful. Honestly, like, I wouldn't do what I do because it is really hard work, and it doesn't always pay well, especially coming out of the pandemic. But when in my whole career now, if I look back at the moments, um, when I didn't listen to that thing in my stomach that told me, no, you're supposed to be there and you're supposed to be doing that, shit's gone sideways.
Hmm.
So I've learned to be like, okay, what you're telling me seems really freaking scary. But, like, I'm going to surrender in this meditation to the universe and trust that you have me and you have my back. And I don't know, the right people, places, and purposes show up. And in Zimbabwe, we're like on this beautiful riverbed and like camping out under the stars and literally like staying just on a wooden platform with no sides and a mosquito net. And my guide and one of my cameramen start, drinking whiskey by the fire, and they start calling hyena. And before I know it, we're like surrounded by hyena. It's the three of us. There's no one else. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because if you two get eaten, like, what the F am I gonna do? I have no cell signal. I have no idea where I am. Like, I have no way of like getting out of here. Like, I'm stuck in the tree. So I mean, there's funny moments. You learn to laugh at some of the things that might have been a little scary. Um, I don't know if you remember the dentist that shot the lions, but I um I happened to be one of the last people to film with Cecil and Jericho. And, I'll never forget, I ended up, like, well, all over the place talking about why it's not sustainable to walk with lions and to interact with wildlife. And I just remember my dad calling me and being like, "Mick, you're from Missouri. Why are you the aforementioned expert on lions? Why am I seeing your pictures all over TV?" And I was just like, "Well, I don't know, Dad. It's the same way you think my crystals are rocks. Like, I'm not going to take the time to fight this out with you, but I love you. And he was like, I love you too. And I don't understand. And I'm like, it's okay. You just need to love me. And we don't always have to understand why. Why? And he was like, all right. Um, and I actually think that's a beautiful gift that you can have from something like travel, which opens your eyes, minds, and hearts to the world around you. You don't have to agree with everybody on everything. Like, what happened to like healthy debate? And that's like something I love about Africa or like extreme nature things and traveling by yourself. Because when you travel by yourself, you're open, more open to meeting new people. You're approachable also by other people. A little bit of vulnerability goes a long way. But when you're sitting around a fire, dinner table, like you can meet someone from halfway around the world and find out you probably have quite a few things in common. And you probably have a lot of questions about where they're from. And it just, instead of getting stuck in the day to day with a friend or your lover or your kid or whatever. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have those bonding moments, but probably the learning moments
Mm,
come when you're a little bit outside of your comfort zone.
mm,
Um, Kind of beautiful self-awareness moment for me was filming in Sierra Leone, and that was in 2019, so right before the pandemic. And I had originally been called in, it was a World Bank project with the tourism board and the Ministry of Tourism. And Dr. Jane Goodall, the aforementioned expert on chimpanzees, but also conservation and sustainability. Um, she was coming to the country, returning after many years to see this gentleman named Bala who owns the Takagama Chimpanzee Sanctuary because she had really helped inspire him to start it like two decades prior. And so I had originally been kind of called in to document that. And then, being the World Bank, I had to send all kinds of, proof of my life and my existence and things that I had done. And I sent some videos, some of our episodes, and they were like, well, how do we get one of those on Sierra Leone? And I was like, well, actually, if I know about it in advance, like me and my crew can be filming, both your corporate videos and, some, you need some marketing help and some rebranding there. And then our episodes in the same shoot, and it's more cost effective. It's the same shoot, same people, blah, blah, blah. And I can help oversee the editing process. And so, long story long, we went, I met my she hero, Dr. Jane Goodall, who's definitely someone I used to watch on TV as a kid with my grandfather. Um, so to meet her was one of the first times I was ever truly awestruck. Which she said she gets that a lot. And she's very funny. And she was 83 at the time and like so freaking with it. Like I knew I was talking to someone that's not from here. Like
mm,
she just has a different universal understanding of like life
mm.
and us mere mortals. Um, but anyway, I digress. The one of the 8 million cool things about the Takagama Chimpanzee Sanctuary is here this guy, Bala, like went and rescued a chimp that some very impoverished person in Sierra Leone had and was like keeping and trying to sell for bushmeat or poaching or whatever. But like we're talking small scale poaching. We're not talking, to China poaching. They're just trying to feed their family, right? And so Bala rescues that one and then rescues another and gets in touch with Dr. Jane Goodall like over 20 years ago. And flash forward now has a sanctuary. And one of the interviews that was set up for us was to go out with the field guides, the soldiers in that were monitoring the premises so that no poaching took place. And as I'm interviewing this guy, he starts telling his story about how he got a job at the chimpanzee sanctuary. And it was because he was a poacher that was going in, and Bala's team caught him and gave him an option that he could stop poaching and come work for him, or he could be turned in.
Hmm.
And the guy, I'm like, oh, that's so wonderful. And he just starts crying. And he's like, I was just trying to feed my family. And I was like, "Hmm." And so, it just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover. You can't come from a place like America or Europe or Australia where you have a lot of other basic needs and things like electricity and water and whatever, and then come to this place and tell people they shouldn't do those things.
Mm,
You don't know, you don't live there. You're in their home. And that is with the people you meet, why the show is not about me and nothing in my company really is. I'm just help in the background making all the things happen. You're not going to meet me in Sierra Leone and you're not going to meet me in Croatia and you're not going to meet me in Singapore. I mean, maybe we both happen to be at the same travel conference, but like you're going to meet the people I introduce you to. So they should be the ones to tell you the story because I don't live there. They do. So wouldn't you rather hear it from them?
beautiful. Well said.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, you've also just kind of touched on something that I was thinking about, and you really just teed it up perfectly. I'm talking about judging a book by its cover. And I say this with such respect. Like, you are a well put together woman. You're always, every time I see you, dressed well. But then I think about it, you're like, oh, you're talking about crawling on your stomach in the bush and this. And like everything you've talked about thus far has been like African centric. And I
Mm,
see how like it's really left such a lasting impression on who you are.
mm.
Yes, I'm sure you have wonderful stories about Singapore, and I know your wonderful new series that you just did in Croatia, which I went to the premiere and it was phenomenal.
We just found out last night, first heard here, that we are winning a film festival for our Oh, the People You Meet in Croatia episode in Brazil
Which was
in September.
beautiful. It was
Thank
so well done. Give the plug first where people can find all your content.
you. Yeah, so Oh, the People You Meet with Michaela Guzy, the series is found on Modern Luxury Media, which is called MLux, and that's on Samsung, Vizio, Apple, Roku, Fire, all those places, to 135 million households across the US, and then also on Qatar Airways, but you have to fly them. I should have some more news on that very soon.
You want to tell us right now?
Not yet.
Okay.
There's some percolating things, but like the
I
ink
like the word
Sinatra.
percolating. Yeah.
And then sleeping around safely, which we haven't really touched on that, but you know, if you let it, crisis can breed innovation. And during those dark days of the pandemic, when I was living in a one bedroom apartment with my ex boyfriend, which I needed to get out of, and the pandemic was going down. And so this is June of 2020, broke up, moved out, sold my things again. That was not my
I was
first
going to say
time.
there's a theme.
And I went and at that time stayed at a bunch of their properties in Colorado and Utah, up the coast of California. And I also stayed at other properties as well, not just JMac. And so I started hashtagging sleeping around safely in those beginning days. Like I wasn't with a crew. They were literally like helping me film on my phone and like I didn't even have my gimbal or mic shed. And then as the show, pun intended, went viral, we started branding it. I trademarked it. Now it's filmed with my crew and drones and all the things. It has distribution on MLux as well. 21 episodes are live. We're editing the next batch. I believe regenerative travel is the intersection of where responsible travelers and sustainable travel companies meet.
Hmm.
And Dr. Jane Goodall defines sustainability as a three-legged stool. You can protect the wildlife, you can protect the environment, but if the local people don't feel the impact of inbound tourism dollars, the stool will never stand on its own. And so I'm actually hiring two of the more promising students in South Africa to help me start editing new content, help us with socials and everything. So I believe in sustainable job development. I have a great editor in Guatemala I use. So I try to find a way to give back or create a job or an opportunity in places that I go.
What's the story you really either haven't told anyone or haven't thought about?
This is like a crazy story. So I leave American Express. We're going back to Africa. I leave American Express. I travel on this one-way ticket. I finally arrive in Kenya by myself. 40 hours of travel. Like, and so I arrive finally on that first night of safari, and I like get there, like, oh my God, what have I just done? I don't have a job. I just came to Africa on a one-way ticket, and I'm here. Like, what? Literally, what am I doing? So I wandered down to the communal table, and the lodge manager, who her name is Monica, um, happens to be running around, and she's hosting the multiple tables and running around saying hi, and she comes and she's like, "You're sitting with me for dinner, but I just need to go do my thing." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "All right, I really need a sign that I'm in the right place. We're under the stars and there's no light pollution." And all of a sudden she comes back and she puts this business card down in front of me, and I look at it, and it's the same business card of this guy that I had met in Chiapas, Mexico the year before when I was speaking at the Adventure Travel Trade Association conference. And he had asked just a really intelligent question. And then we ended up like hanging out and having drinks like with the whole crew afterwards. And I'm like, Frank Castro? And I turn and I look, and he's sitting at the next table. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And he's like from Los Angeles.
I know Frank pretty well.
And at the time was like living ish in Tanzania. And anyway, long story long, he and his colleague, we ended up like sitting out under the stars, and they went on my first safari with me the next day. So I didn't have my first safari by myself. It was actually with a new friend, and his colleague who's also become a friend. And I was like, wow, talk about like a sign from the universe. And then he was like, well, when are you leaving? I'm like, I mean, I don't know, but like my next set of commands is that I'm going over here and from Mascari Travel. And he's like, you're really brave. And he was like, okay. And he's like, well, are you climbing Kilimanjaro? I'm like, well, I've always dreamt of doing that, but like, I don't have hiking boots. I'm not going to have time to train. Like, I'm basically in the bush for the next 3 months. And he was like, don't worry about it. I'll get you some boots, and I'm going to sponsor you if South African Airways will extend your ticket. Now, airlines never do this. I call South African Airways and they're like, wow, sounds like a great experience. No problem. And I'm like, oh, I mean, okay. And so before I knew it, I'm summiting a mountain, which I've never done, um, with only men. And, with the Diamox I was taking to not feel nauseous from the altitude, things got a little clogged up there. And I'm pretty regular. And there's no women around for me to, have a ladylike conversation about like, "Well, where do I poop?" And so eventually I have to like, we're like literally for this day and a half on this really narrow, like pathway, and we're not on the basic route. We're on a more technical route, the Machame route. And I'm like, well, what am I? It's like a one-way path, like one person path. Like, gotta go. And so I finally have to talk to one of the guys, and he basically teaches me how to shit against a rock, like standing up. But I'm like, well, I don't want you near me. Like, I'm gonna have stage fright. Like, you got to go away. So they all had to like, and they were all like, why are we going back down? And so then he ends up selling me out to all the guys, like, oh no, she got to take a shit. And I'm like, oh. And then they're standing on the other side of the rock. Pooping is noisy. And then it's like plopping. And I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna have to walk past this. I'm gonna die. Like the Midwesterner in me is like literally dying inside and they're all heckling me from over the rock. And I'm like, oh, this is so terrible. But I did it. And then the next time I had to poop, I was sure to talk very loudly while it was happening and make all of them uncomfortable. I reverse osmosis the situation in the future. But
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I didn't see that one coming. This is not a shitty segue at all, but I'm just going to say, but I do have this question. What does travel mean to you?
I mean, it's honestly how I live my life. Like, I literally don't have a permanent residence. I have closets in Cape Town, LA, and New York. People think that's a funny way of saying I have multiple houses. It's not. Um, at this juncture, I need to live my life in a very free and independent way. So I was one of the OG jet set nomads. Um, I believe that travel literally opens our eyes, minds, and hearts to the world around us. I believe it makes you a better person. And my core focuses have always been on sustainability and human connection. And I mean, I just think everyone in the world should be more kind and more positive and more compassionate to each other. And I think travel does that for people. It allows you to create a dialogue, and like there's no such thing as being right. I believe we all came from the same place and we're all going to the same place, and that nobody is better than one another. I don't think there's one right religion or one right way of doing things or one right place to be from. So yeah, I just think be a freaking good person. And there's a really cool company with a cool story that we featured in our Gifts That Give Back called Be a Good Person. And I totally urge you to buy their t-shirts and check them out.
Michaela Guzy. Oh, the people you meet, sleeping around safely. Did not see the shit story coming. I'll be honest. That was awesome. I loved what you've shared from the standpoint of you've tried to deflect a lot on the work you do, which is so commendable, but also just inspiring. I really encourage our community to check out Oh, the People You Meet, Sleeping Around Safely.
Watch
Just
all those shows on
watch all the
Endless
shows
or Oh the People You
and
Meet.
give Michaela a follow. You know, no, please don't heckle her about the shit story because I think, again, it's natural. We'll talk about that in a second.
All of us do it all the time.
Also, as you heard the beginning part of the show, our ad, you'll know what we talk about. You know, it's a smooth move, pun intended, and you know what we talk about because, hey, travel constipation is part of it, right? And you got to clear up the backup. Anyway, here's what we're going to do before we wrap up. We're going to play a speed round of questions. You ready?
Yes.
We're going to put 60 seconds on the clock starting now. What is your current country count?
119.
Place you still want to visit?
I really want a horseback ride in Mongolia.
Place you tell people to visit?
Madagascar?
Window or aisle?
Window preference. Aisle if it's a tight connection.
Mountains or beach?
I hate being cold, but I love mountains and beach.
Airbnb or hotel?
I do prefer hotels.
Kindle or hard copy?
Hard copy.
Sunrise, sunset?
I love golden hours of all the kinds.
Do you collect anything from your travels?
Great clothes and jewelry from designers that I film with.
The thing you need on a flight?
Oh, my whore kit.
We're coming back to that, by the way. I got to come back to that. Best travel lesson?
I mean, be a good person for sure.
Favorite hotel?
I just came from Six Senses Ibiza. I'm giving it to them. Magical place.
Favorite food?
Oh, anything with green curry or spicy mustard.
Favorite place in the world?
Oh, I told you I hate this, but Traverse City, Michigan is where I fly into to go to Frankfurt, where my family have our cabin. The Guzwalds.
The Guzwalds. Michaela Guzy, always a pleasure. Always just fun to hear your stories. And I think there's just so much yet to be revealed with you. And I think, you know, I'm excited to see where you go. Encourage our community to check you out. I cannot end this without saying, what is this thing you need on a flight?
The horse kit.
What's the whore kit?
You know Johnny Jet?
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
so he's an old friend, and he had me when I first started Oh the People You Meet do like an article, and it had questions like this, and he asked the same question, and he was like, "A horse kit," and I'm like, "No, I mean it's not what you think." Like my little grandma Rita always called it like top and tails, like you just do a little freshen up, and like for us ladies, like I would have my little wipes to do like the armpit thing and the just so you're nice. Always have a fresh shirt. But the horse kit is like your toiletry kit, but it has things like under eye cream, my tinted moisturizer, put a little bronzer, a little perfume, the handy wipes, the deodorant, a little baby powder. Always travel with a jacket and hat because what is so like wah is when you get off like the 17-hour flight And then you're walking into this luxury hotel, and then everybody's like, "Oh, Michaela, do you want to have a coffee with the general manager? Let's take a picture for our Instagram." And I'm like, do I look like I want to have my photo taken for Instagram? But with a horse kit, you're golden. Cameras don't smell yet.
I feel so much better. And thank you for the clarification on this. Michaela, anything we missed? Any stories you wanted to tell or anything?
I mean, there's like literally so many.
I know.
I mean, just a magical moment that I had.
Tell me a magical moment that you had.
A magical moment was I was still in corporate America, and Tourism Australia has always been a big partner, both corporately and 3 different times for Oh the People You Meet. Our New South Wales episode just won an award at ITFFA. But I took my mom for my 30th and her 60th birthday. And she didn't get to do a lot of travel as a single mom. And I took us to Australia, and we traveled all around, and she was so excited, and she loves animals, like just loves animals. And we were staying at this amazing hotel called Southern Ocean Lodge, one of the best ever, like truly one of the first like sustainable eco lodges in Southern Australia on Kangaroo Island. And there's like abundant wildlife. We had little wallabies like sitting on our porch. But my mom really wanted to see a whale. And we're like facing the ocean. They gave us this baller ass, like 2-bedroom suite. My mom was like hosting the entire lodge. Like she becomes friends with everyone. Literally, like I went to bed because I was like, goodbye, everyone. Like, have fun with my mom. And anyway, I wake up, I'm taking a poop on my toilet, looking at the most amazing ocean, like the Southern Ocean. The next stop is Antarctica. And, I'm sitting there doing my thing. And like mother, like daughter, unbeknownst to me, my mom's doing the same thing. And both of us have the door open, like in our own room, looking out at the beautiful ocean. And all of a sudden I see a whale spout. And I'm like, holy, oh my God. And so I'm like quickly trying to like get out of the toilet and like run across the living room to tell my mom about the whale. And like she comes running into the living room, and both of us are like pulling up our pants and doing the thing. And I'm like, were you just taking a poop and you saw the whale and you were coming to tell me about the whale? And she was like, yeah. And my mom would die if she heard this story, by the way. Like, she does not let us talk about, like, we weren't even allowed to say the word pee. So you can imagine she's not going to appreciate this story. But I was just like, how freaking funny that we were both doing the exact same thing and had the same thought. And we're like both running to tell each other about.
The universe provides in weird and smelly ways sometimes. That's a beautiful thing. Michaela Guzy, Oh the People You Meet.
Pack a bag and journey on. That's how we sign off everything.
All right, people, we'll see you on the open road. Peace. Hey, travelers, if you like hearing about stories that encourage, inspire, and support your travels, we'd love for you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button on your favorite streaming platform.